sense that I had the kind of free time and risk tolerance that I genuinely can't relate to anymore. I used to do these solo backpacking trips a few times a year, usually somewhere in the Appalachians. I'd drive out to some remote trailhead, hike deep into the backcountry, way off the trail, and spend a few days completely off the grid. No cell service, no other people, nothing. I loved it. My friends thought I was insane, and honestly, I kind of was. This particular trip was in the Cherokee National Forest, and it changed how I see backpacking forever. I had been out there for 2 days, and everything had been going perfectly. The weather had been great, the trail was quiet, and I hadn't seen another person since the first morning. That changed pretty quickly, though.
Una vez.
After the second day, I noticed dark storm clouds building up to the west. I wasn't too worried.
¿Me das su huevo?
I hiked through rain.
¿Me das su huevo?
So it was never a big deal.
What is it?
Within about
Yeah.
an hour, I realized it wasn't
No.
going to be a passing shower. The wind picked up hard. The temperature dropped fast enough that I actually stopped to put on another layer. By the time the rain started, I was already looking for a spot to hunker down. The problem was that I was in a pretty exposed section of the trail. As I predicted, it wasn't a light rain. It went from windy to full-on downpour in minutes. The wind was bending smaller trees sideways, and I could hear branches cracking and falling in the canopy above me. I started getting genuinely concerned about my safety. Lightning was striking pretty close by. I was hiking at elevation with a metal framed pack on my back. Not ideal. I kept pushing forward, completely soaked at that point. I was scanning the woods on either side of the trail for anything that could pass as shelter. As if by some miracle, I actually saw a structure through the trees off to my left. It was small and dark and partially hidden by the forest, but it was unmistakably man-made. As I got closer, I realized it was a tiny one-story cabin. It looked extremely old, like it could have been a hunting cabin or a homestead or shelter from
That's
decades
great.
ago.
Thanks.
There was a single window on the
I'd
side I
rather
was
go.
approaching. I can't overstate how relieved I was. I
Hey,
practically
look.
sprinted over to the thing and pushed the door
Let's grab
open.
some supplies.
Inside, it was dim but dry.
I could use a
There wasn't
workbench.
much in there. Just a chair, a small table, and what looked like a concrete pushed against the far wall. There was a stone fireplace on the right side that was clogged with old ash and debris. The place honestly smelled really bad, but I didn't care about anything other than stripping out of my soaked clothes and laying down. There wasn't a couch or anything in there, so I literally just picked a spot on the floor and lay down. It was in survival mode, not exploration. All I cared about was my balance. listen. Someone was moving out there.
He should wasn't
Here, I started getting paranoid. The sounds I heard were just a few of many, and the rest had been drowned out by the rain. My eyes drifted over to the window. I couldn't bring myself to look through it. If someone really was out there, they would probably be looking through it. I stayed in that position for what felt like forever. After a while, I started to relax a little, thinking I had just been hearing the storm, or at the very least, an animal around the cabin. I was almost ready to forget about everything. I heard something that sent me over the edge.
Do you know a lot about the World Cup? Yeah, a decent bit. Which country is most likely to win the World Cup? France, USA, or Brazil? Probably France. France is right. Polymarket is different from a traditional sports book. Users can trade in and out of positions during live matches rather than simply placing a trade and waiting for the final result, allowing them to lock in profits, reduce risk, or reinvest as the game unfolds. Use the code on screen for a free bonus.
NSA Storage has huge savings on all units, plus bigger deals on large spaces. More affordable convenience. Rent online today.
Pressure on the door, like someone was leaning their full weight against it from the other side. The wood creaked and the latch rattled once before the pressure released. My heart rate instantly shot up. That's when something clicked. Why would someone be outside in a storm like this, circling the cabin, tapping on the walls, without just coming in? The door wasn't locked. Nothing was stopping them. And I thought about what I found inside the cabin, and it occurred to me that maybe whoever was out there didn't
It's
want
the
to
shop.
go inside. Maybe they wanted me to stay inside. Maybe the whole point was to keep me there. I didn't think that was the right conclusion, or if my mind was too spiral. When I decided I was leaving right then, I didn't care about the storm. I started moving things into my back as fast as I could. I had this sickening feeling that something really bad was about to happen. The next few moments were I was maybe 30 seconds from walking out the door when I heard the sound of glass shattering behind me. I spun around just in time to see something coming. That was all I could see before the whole room erupted in my face. The flames spread so fast that I couldn't even process what was happening. I was standing in the dark room, and the next second the walls were on fire. It was like physical, and the door wouldn't budge. It was jammed from the outside. I slammed into it with all my might, and it beat. The collapse wall was instantly with. I scrambled to get back behind me, but I couldn't even see. I was just running wildly through the woods and rain, trying to put as much distance between myself and that cabin. Before I could get a safe distance away, I felt something catching me from behind me. I was back on the ground. There was a person. Suddenly I was running for my life. I clawed and kicked and screamed, but this guy wouldn't get up. He was yelling too. He kept trying to get me in a chokehold. He was gouging out my eyes and pulling my hair. I started to feel dizzy. I managed to push him off. Beyond that, I kept running. Whoever had just tried to kill me was screaming like a baby. I came back twice. I ran back to them. I could see the cabin slowly engulfed in flames. I drove out fire. It's burned into my brain forever. The second time I looked back, the glow was smaller, but still visible on the walls. But I just kept running. For all I knew, I was being chased. I didn't stop until my legs gave out. I noticed spots where a couple of large trees had fallen against each other. There was a narrow gap underneath that blocked most of the rain. I crawled under them and just collapsed. Fire, attack, wall rain. I was completely numb. All I did was sit in that crouched position and try to keep breathing. I don't know how many hours passed under those trees, but time lost all. Eventually, I felt some feeling start to reenter my body. I told myself it was move or die. Whoever was out there was probably looking for me, and he couldn't have been that far away. So I got up and started moving through the woods. I didn't know where the trail was, but I didn't really care. I honestly can't tell you how I survived it. I did. I stumbled onto a random trail and just walked. It was so unbelievably places. I just had to trust it. Eventually, the rain subsided a bit, at least enough for me to figure out where I was. I made it to some random trailhead. By that point, the storm had passed. I don't remember too much after that. All I remember is that the first person I saw drove me to a hospital. I had second-degree burns from the morning in my My name is James. This happened maybe 7 or 8 years ago, back when I was in my early 20s and still doing stuff that I probably shouldn't have been doing. I had this friend Charles who was kind of notorious in our friend group for finding cool places to explore, like abandoned buildings and old factories. If it was somewhere you weren't supposed to be, Charles had probably already been there and could tell you exactly how to get in. We spent a weird amount of time on Google
Tisha laid down cover.
explorers.
Oh,
He'd always be getting the group chat with screenshots of random places he was going to check out. Most of us would entertain his ideas, but never actually followed through. I was usually the exception. Charles and I had been friends since high school, and I think the reason we got along so well was that we had similar thresholds for
What,
risk.
did Dr. Reed come here to get some extra
Parents'
rules?
pitches and go, that sounds insane. I hear them and go, where do we go? It was a dynamic that led to some great memories about
Yes,
situations that
freaking
I look back
car.
on now, genuinely
Must be
wonder how we made it out unscathed. This story is about one of those situations. One weekend, Charles texted me about a fire lookout tower he found deep in some forest not far away from us. I really wish I could remember the name of the forest, but I can't. Charles said it had been decommissioned years ago. It was just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere, completely untouched. He didn't tell me how he found it, but I didn't want to know. He was convinced we could hike out to it, climb it, and spend the night up there. I was more skeptical.
On.
Things like
Dead
that are
end.
usually fenced off, or at least protected somehow. I promised him I'd at least come and check it out. To be fair, the idea of being 70 feet or so in the middle of the forest with a 360-degree
This
view
jar.
sounded incredible.
It's a joke, right?
We picked a random weekend and made it happen. Charles
Names,
planned the entire thing out.
IDs,
We
visiting
drive,
time.
what to pack, and how to find
Okay,
the town
Constable.
once we reached the woods. It was a 3-hour drive away, and Charles
Whole
hiked
place
the local trail,
is just
pretty short, about 4 miles or so.
except this jar.
We drove out early in the morning on Friday and made it into the woods sometime in the afternoon.
Hey,
For some reason, I was kind of expecting us to get lost, or at the very least, not find the tower, which is exactly why I was all the more astonished when we actually did. Seeing it through the trees for the first time was an insane sight. I remember blurting out no moving away when I saw how tall it was. I was even more astonished when we got to the base of it and realized it was completely unprotected and not fenced off. It was just sitting there in the middle of the woods waiting for us to find it. The camp at the top was this small square room with windows on all 4 sides. There was a metal staircase that zigzagged up the
Hi,
frame
Constable.
with a section of vertical
Hi,
ladder for the final stretch of
Okay,
the gap.
Constable.
The whole thing looks like it hadn't been touched in decades. Some of the lower beds were missing. There was graffiti on the support beams near the base. To be completely honest, it did not look like the type of structure anyone would be eager to climb. Charles was practically giddy. While I was hesitating and debating whether I should try convincing him to back out, he had already started climbing. I yelled at him to be careful. I got him to slow down. I figured, what the hell? I told myself to stop bitching. Us made our way up carefully, checking the stairs as we went. Most of them felt solid enough, but there were a few spots
You
with
tracked down.
rusted through.
Found your hiding.
The vertical ladder
Well
section
done,
near the top was
nice.
the sketchiest part. It was 20-something feet of straight climbing with nothing but a narrow metal cage around it. The adrenaline rush was insane. As the
Thanks.
Charles led forward, we made it up without any issues. The gap was unreal. You could see the
Hey,
miles in every direction.
remember me?
We had also timed it perfectly. The sun was maybe an hour from setting. Our plan was to camp out for the night and catch sunrise.
Freak the world, Dr. Reed. Hey, remember me? Freak the world, Dr. Reed. That's my face busted.
Stars were incredible. 30 minutes straight, whispering to each other every so often. Never really once.
Hey, remember
Worry
me?
about being secretive anymore.
Reap the world with
Charles
Dr.
burned that
Reed.
bridge a long time ago, so I did something I should have done a while ago. I put my flashlight and aimed it straight down at the base of the tower. Even after I did that, I still couldn't see the source of the light. Eventually, we accepted that there was nothing we could do and tried to go back to what we were doing. We went back to tower and made sure I never did that. That was something within a few seconds. Charles thought it was so criminal that someone else was there to mess with us. How would bother doing that? So, Charles said he was going to climb down there and check it out. I told him that was insane. He was right. He was downright stupid and dangerous. We were taken and passed out and realized that I couldn't see the light anymore. There was just darkness. More darkness down there. It was relatively scary at the end. That's what my eyes. It was light, but it wasn't very clear. I didn't see anything. I was the opposite.
That's my fear, Justin.
Max saying going back in there and left. Max was telling them that I could see the light just sitting there with my nose. Thought that someone had been down there and we couldn't even see that. Sure, we still be able to hear it and try to climb the ladder. I guess it was true. I was still really upset. Something I didn't want to be able to do. I suggested that we wait out the rest of the night before accepting it.
Leave worse, man. I have a plan to
Set
save.
up our sleeping bags.
Whatever you throw at me, I'll throw back at you. UAE.
Kept trying to map out the sounds in my head, figured out where they were coming from, how many sources there were, whether they were getting
This place is
closer or
dying.
staying at the same level.
Wait, Tisha.
Sense got hit.
Where's Tisha?
Whispering to each other. We started hearing
Tisha knows she's.
I was sitting against the door.
She'll head back to the chopper.
Facing the windows on the
That
opposite
should happen.
side. So on the opposite side, I told her there were so many windows we didn't really see. I was able to see out the window. To see them.
Stay there.
And it passed in front of the next pane over. That's what we did. We heard
Move it, people. This is not a drill.
window. sat by the fire until it burned down to embers. The whole time, I didn't see a single person. I fell asleep around 10. I woke up at some point in the middle of the night. Not sure what woke me. It was more like my brain just switched on for no reason, the way it does sometimes when you're sleeping somewhere unfamiliar. I lay there for a minute and stared at the ceiling of my tent. As my eyes adjusted, I noticed something. There was a faint, orangey glow coming through the walls of my tent. I unzipped the tent flap and looked out. Maybe 200 yards away, through the trees, there was a fire. Not a big one. It was not the size of a campfire. It was definitely there. It was flickering, which is how I knew it was a fire. I watched it for a few minutes, waiting to hear talking or something. I wanted to confirm it wasn't some random forest fire. After a while of looking at it, I didn't see or hear anything beyond the fire. I watched it a little while longer, just to see if it would grow out of control. It didn't. I figured it was another camper setup nearby that I just hadn't noticed every day. It wasn't impossible, especially since I had gone to sleep relatively early. Whoever it was, I got to sleep. There's a fire going, which is irresponsible and not true. I watched it for about 5 more minutes, then zipped my tent back up and went to sleep. It didn't bother me too much. The next morning, the fire was the first thing I thought of. Not because it had scared me, because I was curious. I wanted to see what was out there, maybe say hi, mostly to satisfy my curiosity. I packed up the campsite and hiked in the direction of the fire had been. It took me about 10 minutes to reach the area. I was pretty confident I had the right spot. I was naturally clearing that light up on the angle I knew. When I got there, I stopped. It wasn't a fire pit, nor was there a ring of stones or a pile of ash that scorched the ground. Nothing. The ground was completely undisturbed. I walked the whole clear, checking for any sign that someone had been there.
Thanks.
There was nothing on the light.
Vete a la puta madre, espinosa, güey. ¿Y mi café? Mi café. Café. ¿Y la servilleta?
I haven't seen anyone.
¿Eh? No, déjame.
Again? Wait! It's what I deserve. No. No one deserves this. I've got a one-shot cure. It was meant for me, but we've all got to change. You can too. On his head, you idiot! Yeah. Wasn't me.
I'm starving. Gotta eat like this. Perfect. Gotta get going.
It's easy to start selling.
Please stay out. Cure's out there. She won't last long.
Download now.
Go save the
Thank you. We won't waste this.
Good luck.
sense.